All right, Lindsay.
Yes, Tony.
Guess what? Today we have a celebrity.
What?
A WMSCOG celebrity.
What?
Today we're going to interview Jordan with Great Light Studios, and we're very excited that he agreed to chat with us.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you? Good morning.
I am good. How are you guys?
We're
Hi,
good.
Jordan. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
He has been instrumental in a lot of people coming out. I think that we've spoken about Jordan many times, and he has been creating a lot of content and a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts in interviewing and exposing the false doctrines of the WMSCOG and giving the members a good platform to speak out. And I just want to say really quick before we start the interview, I just want to thank him so much because, okay, Jordan, to be honest, when I first saw your videos, I was like, nope, he's a false prophet, because that's what we're indoctrinated to think, like
Yep.
Automatically I saw you with your Bible and I was like, nope, I can't listen to him. He keeps church on Sunday. He's automatically false,
Yep.
But I really wanted to hear the members' stories. And so I listened, and I was so moved by the way that you gave them like a safe place to speak, and you were so respectful, and you never like made them feel shameful or embarrassed or anything like that. And so because of that, I little by little started just like absorbing all your videos and listening to every single thing that you put out there. And then I was able to like kind of soak up the Bible, kind of the things that you're talking about, the Bible, and how, the doctrine doesn't come together and doesn't make sense. So I just want to thank you so much for, for all that you have done, because you've been really helpful for a lot of us.
Wow. Well, that's very encouraging to hear. That's actually probably when people comment on how like our videos have affected people, when they talk about that they kind of get from us maybe a humility and a patience that you don't see necessarily in a lot of the WMSCOG members. That's always super encouraging, because that's kind of what I kind of set out striving to do with this, is just to not be it's not my goal in making videos to just make people look dumb or to like win an argument. Right. It's just that the burden of recognizing that these people are so convinced that they have this absolute solid biblical proof. Mm-hmm. and to be able to be where I'm at and seeing that that's not the case, and to do that in a way that is gentle and respectful, and that I think reflects what I think the Bible in large part is all about, which is loving your neighbor as yourself, and treating other people with dignity and respect and compassion. And so that's what I've strived to do. So it's really awesome to hear that's coming out and coming across in videos.
Right. You can feel like that genuineness.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I think it's interesting because we sort of come at it from like a mind control perspective, sort of like, the, I don't know, the things that happen
in the church, not the doctrine.
Right. And then you sort of come at it from the doctrine perspective. So I think that's really interesting.
You're the yin to our yang, Jordan.
Yes. And to be honest, like we've talked a little bit about this, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more. Like this is all contributed to a bit of a faith journey on my own part, and challenge some of my own ideas about God and the Bible, and made me rethink some things. And so in a lot of ways, I really want to start doing a little bit more of what you guys are doing, and in talking, bringing more into the conversation, like the psychology behind it, and the talking more about the experiential aspects of it, and not just the biblical, spiritual aspect of it. I still think that's hugely important, especially with this group, because it is such a Bible-centered, or I say Bible-centered, I don't mean that they're biblically accurate, just disclaimer there, but they're very focused on the Bible, and that's a huge deal for members. They think that so many of the members that we encounter, the reason they don't leave, one of the major things that holds them back is like specific WMSCOG. Sorry, I'm not supposed to
You're
say.
fine. You're
Okay.
fine. It's okay.
Season 2, we're just going for it.
At
We don't
this
care.
point, we're just
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure, but they, they're just members will get held back in many instances by the doctrines, and so all that to say, I definitely want to continue to deal with doctrinal stuff because that's important, I think. But I do want to do again a lot of what you guys have done, and I love your going through the bite model, Steve Hassan's model. I think that's really helpful for people to hear. So I actually want to do an episode or two on that and maybe get Kelsey to help me walk through some of that. So
that's awesome. We love Kelsey. She's so amazing and so smart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm having so much fun just watching this whole community, sort of like you guys all know each other without knowing each other. And
Yeah.
so I'm just kind of sitting back watching this whole thing kind of come together. It's just so cool.
Well, the interesting thing about Jordan is he was never in the church.
Yeah.
Right?
Jordan, you and I are kind of the same. We got somehow,
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bit of what we want to ask you. We can do it now or as that flows naturally, but you and I are both caught up in this somehow without ever being members of it, which is funny. So we're in a unique position where we're just like, I never even went to a service or anything, but
Yes.
somehow now I'm obsessed with it too.
Well, maybe he went to a service. Jordan, did you ever keep a service?
I sat through not a service like in their sanctuary or whatever you call it. I don't think I would have been allowed to do that, but I went into one of their churches and sat through like a Bible study. Not because I was like tempted to join or in any way or thought that they had anything to offer, but because we wanted to go in there and we wanted to like publicly have conversations and say, hey, to all of you who just got brought in here from the Walmarts and the colleges who are sitting in here getting like this crap poured into your minds right now, this is a load of garbage. And so we actually ended up we went into the church a couple different times, and the last time we went into the Wichita church, the deacon saw us sitting there talking to some members, and he just got this stone cold angry look on his face and walked up to my brother-in-law Jesse. We both thought he was maybe going to just deck him in the face, and he just said, get out. And like wouldn't talk to us once he just made us leave. And so
I believe it. You're a threat to them. But then, like, I listened to your interview last night, and it was really good. Last night, Jordan has a YouTube channel, and last night he what's the word I'm trying to say? Interviewed. Well, yeah, he released a video of his interview with a former member, and it was really good. And he told a story about how when you got kicked out, how all the members followed you and went to McDonald's and then just studied with you there. And I thought that was hilarious.
Yes.
Did the pastor ever study with you, or like, did you ever find like you studied with a member and then a deacon would study with you? Or like, were they trying to get higher teachers to come and try to teach you?
So the very first conversation I ever had with a member, it was the deacon of the Wichita church, and then Edgar, which is the guy I interviewed in the video last night, who's now out of the church. And so
that's amazing. How many years ago was that? I'm sorry.
That was like 4 years ago, maybe around 4 years ago, I think.
Okay.
4 to 5. But so that was the very first time we sat down with the deacon and Edgar, and so that conversation kind of instigated. I kind of walked away from that just like so many emotions. One thing was just so frustrated at how like locked into this group these people were, and the other thing was just how convoluted and confusing their doctrines were. The way they did, like I'd never seen before, the way like they flip from one Bible verse to another. They do these gymnastics to where literally it disorients you. Like that is such an effective method because like you're so caught off guard by their flipping all over the place and making these seeming connections that are really just taking things wildly out of context. And it's just, yeah, I was just really shocked by how confusing it was, and that motivated me to want to start making videos. So that conversation with Edgar kind of started me on this whole journey.
Wow. Jordan, you just reminded me of something that they would also do. I remember when I would go in and study, they would do that thing where they'd be like, so what does this mean? And they would make you kind of like do the callback thing of like, so this means, and
they
then
do
they
that
would,
with like fig tree.
and like
Right.
always throughout school, and like there's a personality type that is like that puts you in a place of like humiliation. Like I hate that. And so when I would do studies with them, it would make me feel like nervous because I was like, oh, I have to have the answer. I don't even like, and I would go in there as an atheist, like totally not going
Right.
to like be tempted by the word of it. I just want to know what
Right.
Tony was studying. But I still like, even though I didn't really want to be a part of it, I still was like, I don't know the answer. I got to know the answer. I don't want to look stupid. I want them to know that
Yeah.
I'm paying attention.
Because they
And
put you in a private study room, and so you
yes,
do
and
feel
it's
like that
weird. It's
pressure.
almost like you're being interrogated, and you really have to be like focused, and like they're like, so if this fig tree means this, then this would mean what's
Right.
the
They kind of set
answer?
you up. Yeah, they set you up
And
like
I
that.
hated that. Oh my gosh,
Oh
I
yeah.
hated that so much. And you just pointed it out. Like that's it like kind of dizzies you, and like it's
Disoriented. Yeah, that's a good word to
but
put
you're
it.
kind of off guard emotionally. You're kind of like in a space that you're not like where you normally would be.
Absolutely.
And
Trying
they
to
preach it with such authority that you're like, they know what they're talking about. Look at them. They're in suits and ties and they have a Bible. They know.
Yep.
That was a question, Jordan, that we had from a listener. If you ever, in your studying of it and talking with people, like, were you ever tempted by it?
Did you
Like,
ever think they had the truth?
Oh no, not for
Never.
a
No.
split second. The honestly the only thing it really caused me to think is that like all religion as a whole was just a big sham. That's probably the biggest thing it made me think. Never, not for a moment did I feel like it was true.
Right.
Now I had
kind of
moments where
points
I
out the
didn't.
flaws of all religion.
Yeah, yes, and not for a moment did I think it was true. I did have moments where I didn't know like how do I respond to this? Like this is just so again convoluted and confusing that I don't even know like what to do with it. And so that made me feel like kind of frustrated and just confused at times, but definitely never. I feel like I'm able to see like when they like the way they try to prove like Mother God and things like that. It's just I think anybody with sort of a basic understanding of what like a what am I trying to say here? Anybody with like any sort of like formal training on biblical studies or exegesis and proper
Right.
ways to interpret like
But
ancient
how many
texts.
people have that kind of training, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
And I
so
don't.
Jordan, right? Were you raised Christian? Are you a pastor? Are you like a leader in your church, or?
So I was raised Christian, yes.
Okay.
And I'm not a pastor, no. I mean I sort of have been. I've never been like an official title at a church as pastor. I've preached and taught and stuff like that at different churches, but never had like an official pastoral role.
I wasn't sure, yeah. But you're very involved in your church. Before, were you involved in your church when you met them, or?
So, I mean, I kind of am involved with a variety of different churches. It's kind of been an interesting season spiritually for me and my wife, and so we haven't been super involved, to be honest, with any church. We have a local church here in my small hometown that we go to maybe twice a month or so, and so that's good. We're just kind of in an interesting season of kind of figuring some things out, figuring out what.
That's totally normal.
That's good.
We're there with you. Oh my gosh. I mean, as you know, I mean, when members come out, they go through people just go through all different stages of their life and different, Do you think that interviewing and meeting these people And just the whole experience with the WMSCOG, do you feel like that personally affected your faith in God
Yeah,
or in the
I
Bible?
think it definitely has in some ways, and I think it more probably would be more accurate to say it just continued to push me into a process that I've already had been in for a number of years. That kind of in a lot of ways started with me sitting down with two Mormon missionaries and having them in my home, and I would have them in my home a couple different occasions, and we just sit down and talk. And my goal as a evangelical Christian was to try to convert them and prove to them that my understanding of the Bible is right and theirs is wrong, sort of deal.
For sure.
But as I sat there, as somebody who I genuinely loved Jesus, felt like I had this real relationship with him, but then I saw these two guys across the couch from me who were convinced of the same thing and were speaking with such like affection
That's
for
conviction.
Jesus.
Right.
Yeah. And my evangelical like belief system told me that I had to perceive them as being like doomed to hell, like they're on their way to hell, and
Right.
I'm not, but they are because they have these different set of like intellectual beliefs about Jesus that I don't have, and
Just a
therefore
few little differences. Yeah.
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 They
and,
probably
and,
had since they were kids. They grew up
right,
in
and
the same
they
way
were
that
just
you had your differences
yeah.
when you were a kid. Yeah.
Right. They were born with that belief system. They grew up in it just as I have. And so that like really bothered me. And it was this sort of thing where like I could either like embrace cognitive dissonance and like just kind of push that under the rug and ignore it, or I could acknowledge it. And just I'm kind of a deep thinker. I can't, if something is brought to my attention like that, I can't just ignore it and move on with life. And so it just bothered me, and I just kind of started a process of wrestling with that, and it I think just put me in this path, I guess, of just really putting a lot of my beliefs on the table and saying, okay, what is actually true? Do I really have a good reason to believe this or not? And so as I've talked to members and interviewed members and listened to their stories, it's kind of been the same thing. That it's just as I've been in interviews saying, hey, you guys need to really think about why do you believe what you believe, and is this true? Do you really have good evidence for it? Like, it's kind of been a big mirror in my face where I've been like, if you're going to say this to them, like, you have to, put your money where your mouth is. And that's the same thing for yourself. And so I've
That's
had to be.
amazing. Like that is
And so
really humble.
I'm
I think.
glad to hear you say that because
Mhm.
your videos were out. I think your videos were out when Tony, you were still in it, right? And so you were one of
Yeah.
the like few, very small amount of people that were like online talking about Tony's church. And I was
Yeah.
like, he's nice. He's not mean to the people on there, but they're just talking about why one Bible verse doesn't mean
Right.
what the other Bible verse means. And I'm like, I don't believe that either of those are true because I don't believe in the biblical doctrine. And so I'm like, these are cool to hear the members coming out, but for me, like trying to cope with Tony being in there, I was just like, he's nice, but it's all biblical, and so
It's
I
all,
can't.
yeah,
So
right. I can
after like an
totally
hour of
understand
it,
how
I
that
was
would be
like, I don't
something.
know, like neither of you guys are right. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very rare though, and that's why I think the members really like Edgar, like he really wanted to keep in contact with you because from my perspective inside the church, whenever we would meet somebody with a very religious background, like an evangelical Christian, it was always such a fight. And they could never be humble enough to listen. And you talked in your interview last night about Edgar, or you guys talked about something how, you know, the church members always have like a response ready for whatever they say. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they all like the countermeasures. They have all
Right.
these things ready. But the thing about it is like so do the general Christians when you go
Right.
preaching to them.
Yeah.
That's why we're able to make the countermeasures because
Yeah.
every single Christian that we've ever met uses the same verses against us. So it's just
Yep.
like this back and forth continuously of the same Bible verses.
I should
But
know that.
you were humble enough to like say, wait a minute. let's all just step back and like talk together and have a discussion together. And so I think that's why members are very comfortable speaking with you. So I just really commend you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, Jordan, I should know this. Is the word for that apologetics?
Yes. So like
like
the Christians use that term to like to define like defense of the faith, to defend the Christian faith is known as apologetics. If I'm going to tell these people to, be critical thinkers and to analyze in a real intellectual, rational way what they're believing and these things that I'm like commending people to do regularly on videos, like I know I have to do that myself, and so yeah, it's I've had times where I've practiced the same sort of cognitive dissonance with certain beliefs and things, and it's just, I think we all do that in some way, whether religious or not. And so
that's sort of the awness of God, though, is that because there is no way to explain that, there is an element that if you are going to believe in any sort of like spirituality, any God, you have to be willing to take a little bit of cognitive dissonance, and
well, that's what they call faith.
Yeah, faith. So
I mean, is it faith or cognitive dissonance?
If you are believing in any higher power, there is an element of being able to turn off the rational side of your brain to be able to do that, which is I think tricky for people that are like
critical thinkers,
like philosophical thinkers, kind of need an answer for everything. So I'm curious when I hear Jordan like articulate, like really thoughtful, like I am curious how you get to and Tony, like people coming out of the church. That's what's fascinating to me about all of this, is that you guys very clearly are critical thinkers, and then to be in a space that like takes you from that to like, I believe that Mother is a God that lives in South Korea, and that like this doomsday mentality, like it takes it to that next level where you're like, you're such a smart, critical thinking person. And then it's fascinating to learn like how it's capable of like reaching to that next level. Do you know what I'm saying? And the same with like, I think of that against like all religions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jordan, do you feel like all Christianity can have a tendency to be quote unquote culty?
I wouldn't say all Christianity, but I do feel like in all this, like I'm still figuring out so many things.
Right.
And
so are we.
But I think I would just say that I have seen, and other people very close to me have witnessed, evangelical Christianity displaying cult-like tendencies, and I have recognized this. Another thing where I'm doing an interview and listening to somebody describe their experience in this cult, and in the back of my mind, even though I don't want to, see and recognize it, I'm like, man, that I've seen that, or I see that in this Christian church, or in this Christian leader, or this group of people here, and so I definitely think there can be and is a tendency toward that, which is unfortunate.
Same sort of patterns.
Yes, right. I do want to say though too, like I definitely do not consider myself to be an atheist. I still consider myself to be a Christian and a follower of Jesus, and that is still for I have some things about Christianity that just are still very compelling to me, even when compared to other religions. And one thing that has really, because I have definitely seen the negative aspect where I see similar, like cult-like tendencies within the evangelical structure. But the other thing that I've seen is that as I've like dealt with this specific cult group, the Mother God group, and I've seen like just in a lot of the members, like like a lack of humility, a lack of critical thinking, a lack of just even the way the whole organization sort of promotes like such focus on like rules and outward ordinances like Sabbath and Passover, and kind of the kind of person, the kind of character that turns somebody into somebody who's just not at peace and very judgmental toward others and all that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like I have seen within people, individuals where I feel like are sincerely following Jesus. I'm not gonna put this on like all of evangelical Christianity because there's a lot of junk there, but I've seen within a lot of like some of the best people probably I've ever known, the most humble, the most sincere, compassionate, kind, patient people I've known are Christians who are following Jesus, and they're not, they're just really good people. Not that you can't have good people outside of that. Obviously you can, but there's just, I do still feel like in the midst of all this, I've seen like the character, I guess, that is produced in WMSCOG members compared to the character I see displayed in a lot of like some of my closest friends who are just followers of Jesus and who really believe that there's a God out there who loves us unconditionally. And I feel like that belief that there's a God who loves unconditionally, it really, I do really see that change people.
Like
I've
affecting their day-to-day life.
Right.
Affecting
yes.
who they are. Yeah.
I made a documentary, like a full-length movie telling the testimony of a couple guys who were like basically grew up with drug addiction and crime and violence. One of them ended up in prison for murder. But he found a Bible in his prison cell, had this experience with Jesus, and just completely changed his life. And the kind of person he became was just this totally night and day difference. And so now, full disclosure, that story has not had a positive ending as far as where he's at now with his faith. But I guess all that to say, I do feel like I see like people who have a faith in Jesus, in simple terms, Jesus who loves and dies for us unconditionally, the kind of Jesus you see displayed in the Gospels, who loves the outcast, who fights back against like the religious structure and the religious elites of the day, and who's not somebody who just goes in line with the system, but like fights back against the system and actually turns on her head. Yeah. I see that transform people, and right. I haven't really seen the WMSCOG doctrines producing that same sort of thing.
Yeah, no, they do the opposite. They want to remove the individuality.
Can I say something about that? Okay, because Jordan, you've met a lot of these members that come out. And when you see them, you see such lovely people.
Right.
And so what I feel like happened to me, I mean, you see these really beautiful, smart, creative, very like motivated, passionate people that were in the WMSCOG
every single one of you that I have
every
met.
single one of them is so lovely. I'm not saying me, but I'm saying like everybody that I've met that has come out.
You are, but yeah, all of them. It's crazy.
So it makes me, I'm just, thinking about what you were talking about, and I feel like I almost had a different identity when I was in there. Mm-hmm. Like I was a totally different person, and I call that my cult identity, quote unquote, cult identity. And so it's like, I don't feel like that was really me. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel like that was really me, because I was doing things and I was making decisions that I would normally never make or never do. And I was wearing things and believing things, and that's just not who I am. And so coming out of the cult, I don't know, it's just very interesting, and I feel like people, like, I'm very interested to hear more about that video, that you made about.
Definitely. I want to watch that.
Me too. Well, maybe if you'd like, we can put it in our show notes.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, because I think that there are other ways. This is just something that I'm struggling with personally, is like, yes, some people may turn to religion and some people may turn to the Bible to help them through an addiction or some kind of struggle, but some people may turn to, say, exercise or, meditation or something else, and it also has the same kind of benefit. And it also, like you said, you've met a lot of really great people in the evangelical Christian world, and so have I totally agree. But I've also met really great people with absolutely no religious belief.
Right.
And so I don't know, those are just like questions that I'm coping with and
Yeah.
thinking about, you know what I mean? Like, if it works for some people, I think that's really great.
Yeah.
But
that totally makes sense.
I don't know. It's just
of a forgiving God, like the concept in Christianity is a very like God forgives you of your sins. He loves you as you are. I think that is so appealing to people who have been through like something that's really hard to forgive yourself for. Like, let's say you murder someone. Christianity is like such a great tool for them to say, like, if God can forgive me for something that I've done that's so horrible, that I didn't know how I was going to forgive myself otherwise to move forward and have this like functioning life after. Christianity has the basic structure of like, you can forgive yourself because God forgives you. And that's appealing, right? Like, there's so many people who are so angry at themselves and can't give them the grace of forgiveness to themselves, that it's nice to hear a doctrine of, well, God has already forgiven you because you're perfect in his eye. And that's a beautiful like concept if you're struggling through something and you can't find forgiveness. You're like,
but that's not the WMSCOG teaching, though.
That is one?
No,
that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like, I could see how Christianity is like a warm blanket spiritually when you're like going through something, because they're like, God has already forgiven you. You are perfect in his eye. You know, like that's beautiful. That's a really like comforting thing to hear when you're struggling. Whereas like your church is scary. They're just like, if you're sad. So Tony, I'm looking at. I forget that we're on Skype. Sorry, I'm like looking and pointing at you. You have no idea who I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a lot of fear. I mean, from day one, you're just told you're a sinner and you're wicked.
Bad day. If you have any negative thoughts, that's the devil. That means that you've done something and you're being like punished for some sin that you need to struggle through. So, anyways, I could see that. I could see how one is definitely more comforting than the other, and it's not.
I think.
Cold.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that, and I think like as far as what you were saying, Tony, like that's a great question and something I pondered as well, and because you do see the idea that and I think this is actually a misconception that I've seen atheists have toward Christians, is that we believe that you can't be a good person unless you are a Christian. And so I definitely, that's, I know
morality doesn't based on spirituality.
Well, you guys, when I came out of the cult, that was something I was shocked about, because when you're in the cult, you're taught that everybody is wicked, everybody is sinful, everybody is, possessed by evil spirits. And then when you go out and you meet people, you're like, oh my God, people are really nice. Like, this is actually a really nice, safe world out here, because you're just taught to fear everything outside of the church. So that was something that was really helpful, to just see the kindness of people. And honestly, like in my personal life experience, some of the most judgy and, harshest people have been the most religious people that I know. So it goes both ways. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
So, well, this is something I wanted to run by you guys and just get your thoughts on it, because as you're, sounds like we're all kind of deeply thinking about these things. But one thing to me, and I would say this is maybe the major, or I would say probably the number one. I have like a handful of reasons why I still like lean or would identify as a Christian and find the Christian worldview compelling. And probably the number one reason that I still find myself having a faith or belief in God comes down to a lot of what you're talking about, because we're talking about how both religious and non-religious people are good, and you find good people in and out, and that's totally true. I think one thing I've wrestled with as I've really deeply started to question, like, am I going to continue to be a Christian? Am I going to continue to believe in God? And I've really had moments of not knowing and being in a place where I really felt like it was kind of up on the table, and I'm just going where I feel like what makes the most rational, reasonable sense of the world I live in. So one thing that really, really, I think has hung me up and kept me from like moving into a more of like a place of like being agnostic or atheistic is the concept of like good and evil, and like good people, bad people, right and wrong. Because like when I think about that, like rationally, logically, and take it down to its like deepest base, in my mind, I realize that if I leave faith in God, I don't feel like I don't know any longer what my rational basis would be for morality, for truth, or for meaning, for purpose, for like even making a distinction between good and bad. Like, okay, so for instance, if I say I no longer believe in God, I guess in my mind, I can't think of like how could I make a distinction between a good person and a bad person, because what is good and bad if this world we live in is simply the result of a random, process that didn't really have a mind or a purpose behind it. And so I think maybe there is a good answer for that. But that's something that definitely has that one of the things I've thought about more than anything, because I want to, whatever worldview I hold to, I want to be able to have I feel like a basis for like being a husband who's faithful to his wife, and a person who treats other people with compassion, even if it doesn't necessarily benefit me, and things like that. And again, I'm not saying that atheists or unbelievers or non-religious people don't do that and can't do that. They do, sometimes better than religious people. My thing is, like, as a rational thinking person, I don't know what my basis would be for doing that, or for
like,
even.
what's the point? If there's no end game, there's no plot line of God and the devil, and then heaven at the end is your present.
Yeah, and I think not even necessarily. I think maybe not even necessarily that, as far as like if there's no punishment or reward, what's the point? It's more like does good and evil even exist as true concepts, if that makes sense? Like how can I say there's, does that make sense? Like, how can I say that there's something good and there's something bad? Like, how can I say that loving somebody is the good or right thing to do?
And am I doing the right thing, or am I doing?
Yeah. I mean, we all
sort
have
of like a compass.
Yeah.
So
it makes me.
That
makes me question
transition. That's a hard thing to let go of, because of your whole life, you've been basing every decision you make and like your whole everything off of that concept. That's scary. It's so scary to just like let.
But it makes me question. I have a question though. What if there's just, say, a person on a stranded island and just has no touch with humanity, no communication? Do you think that person has a sense of morality? Can that person live a moral life, never being exposed to the teaching of God or the teaching of the Bible?
Or do they have any sort of do they have a obligation to morality if it's not
right? Right.
I guess
like
I to eat them.
I kind of feel like we're mammals, and like we have we're just really, really smart mammals that know that we're gonna die, and so we have to create all these things. I don't know. It's a very interesting, a very, very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that, Jordan. That's really
yeah.
And I can see, the like, to be honest, like, I don't reject like concepts like evolution. As far as I know, that's something that I'm not going to say that because this ancient book says the earth was created in 6 days, that therefore I'm going to hold tight to that till I'm going to die on that hill, even when every
Right.
Biological, scientific
Right.
mind is saying that's not the case. And honestly, I don't even think the Bible's purpose in Genesis is to communicate a 6-day creation. That's kind of beside the point.
I get that vibe from
Right.
it. Feels more like poetically written rather than
Yeah.
like, and then on day 6,
Yeah.
Right.
What happened?
I mean, the Bible is a beautifully written,
Yeah.
literature. I remember in college we would study Genesis. It's a beautiful piece of literature. I just don't know that I'm ready to commit my whole life the way that I did for all those years anymore, for this book.
Jordan,
Right.
do you feel like your life would change? Like, do you feel like your day-to-day life would change significantly if you like stopped going to church? Would it be like totally different for you, or like would that?
I think like maybe a year ago, like the place where I was at with questioning faith was a lot more scary. I think there's kind of been some transitions in life, and just I've gotten more comfortable with saying I don't know to 90% of things, and
Me too.
well, maybe 100% of things. Like at the end of the day, I can't say that I have 100% certainty that God is real or that Jesus is who the Bible says he is. I believe that. Sometimes I feel like I believe it more with my heart. There's moments I believe it more with my heart than I do with my mind, and there's days when it makes sense with my mind. And I'm kind of like back and forth. I think overall that still just seems to make the most sense out of the world that I see around me and that I experience. But so all that to say, I think at this point, I don't feel like if suddenly said there would be some repercussions, probably mostly relationally with certain people if I was to say I'm no longer a Christian, but it wouldn't be. I think a lot of people kind of know that, me and my wife and even a lot of my siblings are kind of in this place of like just deeply questioning and rethinking a lot of long held beliefs. And so it doesn't feel like as big of a deal at this point to be in that place.
I think that is so real and so authentic, and everybody is experiencing things like this. They just don't want to talk about it. So thank you for, being honest about,
And I
because
I like to think this is generational too. Like our generation doesn't really fit in the box of like all the ones before where they're just like, well, your grandma went to mass, so you're gonna go to mass. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not, just do it. Just make grandma happy, you know? And like we're a generation where we're just like, no, like you told me I'm an individual. I want to be an individual. And so like Christianity might look different for you and your family. Like you guys are still believers at the most basic level, but you don't have to do all of those things that like.
Yeah, definitely.
There's
definitely something going on. It seems like globally with like specifically with this generation in Christian circles, it's like called deconstruction. That's a big movement going on, and I know a lot of, there's probably a lot of people that would hear me talking about some of these things and using the word deconstruction and go into fight or flight mode and this could even I don't know, depending on who would listen could even podcast might change relationships in some way with me, because a lot of people have heard this, and not that I'm like saying I'm deconverting or anything, but I'm kind of like I'm not going to lie and be dishonest and kind of do what I've been telling members of this cult to not do for years. This is where I'm at. Like again, I as best as I still believe in Jesus. I still want that. I still feel like that gives meaning and significance to life, and intellectually I still feel like there's things that really don't make sense to me about evangelical Christianity and the Bible, but there's things that really do, and so I'm just kind of figuring that all out, and I just am where I am, and I think
that's perfect. That's part of the journey, and believing in Jesus, that's your main, that's the main part of Christianity, and that's what you have,
Yeah.
I just, and I'm not saying that this is true in your case, and if I am not being I don't want to be offensive at all. It's just something that I notice in cults and in people coming out of cults is that they also experience a change in relationships, because you mentioned like it, like a little bit of hesitation, like if I say this it may change relationships, people may even cut me off from their relationships. But that happens also in the WMSCOG, and it happens in Jehovah's Witness, and it happens in Mormonism, and that's another thing. It's like, why is that happening? You know what I mean? It's a form of shunning. It took me a long time for me to realize that in my situation. But
I think it's extreme, but I think as humans we do that when you leave your community, right?
Like a tribal thing.
You're saying like this is what connects us as a group. It's like you're in a relationship and you have all of these friends together, and then when you remove yourself from the relationship, most of the time you're not like hanging out with those same people.
But it shouldn't matter though. What you believe shouldn't matter. Those relationships should still be there.
But if that's what binds you, it makes sense there's going to be a little bit of tethering. It's not, you know, that's natural, I think. But then you have to make sure it's not the extreme version, which is like, you spoke negative or you're 5 minutes late to service today. I'm not even going to give you eye contact. Like that's a very extreme shunning version of that. But I think there's a little bit of natural tendency is like, I'm leaving my group now. I'm leaving my herd to go over here and like stargaze. I'm going to be a stargazer now.
Right. And I wouldn't be like, I don't, when I said that, I don't feel concerned about like necessarily people in my personal life, family or friends.
Right.
I don't have anybody that I think would really like shun me or stop a relationship. They would just be like, you know, like people would be concerned if you know, I was saying I'm deconverting, which I'm not. My I think more than that, I just think, okay, I'm saying this out loud. You know, I got people that follow the YouTube channel that I have, and they, you know, this is a Christian ministry, and they might freak out when they hear some of these things. And so I just say to those people, if you want to know more about what I'm saying, where I'm at, you can always ask me and talk to me.
Well, I'm definitely deconstructing everything. I'm definitely deconstructing. I am in the deconstructing process and deprogramming. Which is and I just it's interesting, very interesting.
And see, I was really religious in high school. I've kind of talked about that early in the beginning. I was like I was like really into my youth group, and I loved it so much, and I really loved like singing in the choir. And I had that same thing where when I came out of it, I was like, well, maybe I like kind of believe in God a little bit, but I don't really believe in all of it. And then it was like over the years, I was like, oh okay. I don't really believe it.
Yeah.
But it was scary though, because you are like, if I'm wrong, I'm going to go to hell.
It is very scary.
That feeling kind of lingered for a few years, because you're just like, if I'm not correct about this, then God's going to reject my soul.
Yeah. And speaking of hell, that would be one of the major doctrinal things that I've just very much shifted my perspective on.
Tell me, because I'm very interested in that. You know, we had such a strong fear of hell. I mean, so strong. And I've been trying to kind of research like the history of hell. Why do we even believe in it? You know, do you know about that?
I know some. I'm definitely not an expert, but it's a topic that has really captivated my mind for like a decade, and I've spent a lot of time with it. I've spent, you know, there are periods where you know, the concept of hell was at the root of like some very severe depression and just like me having to quit my job and because of just the deep like worry about it, and all related to me being convinced I committed the unpardonable sin and all that. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about that concept and looking at the Bible and asking that another question, just asking, why do I believe in this concept, this idea of like after we die, there's this place that's literal fire where people will literally burn over like forever and ever and ever. And
that's awful.
I think, I'm at a place right now where I just like, when I hear that, I don't know how you could in any way say that is coming from a good God and maintain any sensible, rational meaning to the word good that we have any, like, that we would commonly use. The common way we understand the word good, like, I don't know how that fits into it. And especially when you there's Christian doctrines, Calvinism, and that go into God's sovereignty, that would even go as far as to say that God decides before he even creates certain people that that's where they're going, and he creates a massive humanity just for the ultimate purpose of burning them forever to glorify himself.
That would be the only logical way he would be able to do it, if it's like the basic structure of Christianity. And I say this, and I can take this out if this is offensive, but if God created you, God loves you, he knows everything that's about to happen in your life, but then the concept of hell is real, like then that makes sense. Then that means he would have had to knowingly create you before you were born to be bad enough to go to hell at the end of it.
Right.
And also it's confusing when you add the concept of Jesus in, that's like no matter what you do in life and you sin, it's already forgiven if you ask Jesus for forgiveness and you bring him into your life. Then everybody goes to heaven as long as you ask for forgiveness. But if you've never been exposed to the Word of God, then that's kind of mean too, in a what we know of like humanity. So if like you're not preached to about Jesus before you die, then you're going to have the opportunity before you go between purgatory, heaven, and hell.
Yeah.
It's like some of the concepts that I've overheard over the years.
And I think those are,
because then that means everybody's just going to heaven. So none of
and I think those are legitimate like concerns and kickbacks to what ultimately I think is like these assumptions in evangelicalism about what is biblical doctrine. And so I think for
Jordan,
me,
you
like
should do a video about hell.
I think I really want to. Yeah.
Tony,
I think for me again, like I'm
questions, because I have so many things to ask you, but I don't want to stop like going down this rabbit hole with you because there's so much about it.
I know.
We can do a part 2 if you want, but
right.
I think I'm in with things like that. I'm in a place where I pretty vehemently and confidently reject the traditional view of hell that gives any sort of idea that that's like there's this real place where people will burn in a literal fire forever. I do see like Jesus having language of like judgment and stuff, but I think that we take Jesus's words so like wildly out of context, and we don't enter into like reading the Gospels with any sort of
context or history.
Context for that, like the setting he was in, the audience he was speaking to, the Gospel writers and what their intentions were, the audience they knew they were writing to, and so much of that. And then I feel like we come up with these like westernized,
especially Revelation. Oh my gosh.
Yes, Revelation is the huge one that I think it's. I've said this before in videos, like Revelation is apocalyptic literature, which you to assume going into it, there's going to be highly symbolic, metaphorical language that is not intended to be taken literally. The interesting thing is, like a couple of the main passages we get the Western view of hell come from Revelation, from these highly symbolic, metaphorical texts.
And you read the rest of it around it, and you're like, what the hell did that just say? It's so crazy.
Can I just throw
Revelations?
Right.
Like no matter what your religion, because it is a wild, wild ride, baby.
I just want to throw something out there that I heard on a podcast. And I think there's a book about it. I don't know who wrote it, you guys. I'll research it and let you know. But there's a conspiracy out there that, during the time of the apostles, that there was like psilocybin laced in some of their like crops because they weren't like growing it correctly or something about that time, and so it was creating like mushrooms and hallucinogenics. And so they're coming up with all of these interesting things, and they're having all these visions, and then they're writing them down. So I don't know, it was just a whole nother
that makes a lot more sense to me than what.
Right. Jordan, can I go back to the WMSCOG? I just want to ask you a few more questions before we finish up.
Before we finish up, I got like 2 hours more.
Well, I know, but we're gonna have to, Jordan, you've spoken to so many members coming out, and I know a lot of people reach out to you. Do you see any like, people always say, I would never join a cult. Never join a cult. Of course, nobody ever joins a cult. Nobody ever thinks that they will ever join a cult. Do you see any similarities on what kind of people have joined the WMSCOG, or do you see a like certain type of person that would be in the cult or anything like that? A certain personality type or anything?
I don't know that I have really seen a pattern or recognized a
Right.
pattern. It just seems like given the right circumstances, being in the right stage of life and the right sort of emotional and psychological mentality, you could believe anybody
Right.
might believe anything, and especially when you put into that, like if a person has a limited social like structure around them, a limited social interactions with other people who are maybe keeping them like balanced in a sense, and they for some reason get more secluded and then get caught up with running into members and going to Bible studies. I think people are going to be more prone to get sucked into this stuff, and so people that I suppose are maybe that might be prone to it are people who are kind of searching for like significance and identity, and who are maybe in transitional periods in their life. I think a lot of people in like going to college, it seems like a lot of I mean,
Right.
obviously the WMSCOG focuses on that
Right.
age group, but I also feel like there's maybe something there to people kind of
Right.
transitioning from a certain comfort of living at home maybe, and then they're transitioning into this whole new way of life, and maybe more prone to getting sucked into these sort of things.
Totally. That is exactly what I've experienced too. Exactly. That's why I think, I mean, who doesn't go through transitions in your life? Who doesn't go through some kind of grief or time that you're searching? So really, we're all vulnerable to some type of mind control or joining some kind of group, and that's just sort of the message I want to, get across,
Yeah.
for us
I
all to be
definitely
aware.
think it's weirder. I think it's weirder to meet somebody who was like born and raised in a religion and never at any point sort of like scurried away from it, at least temporarily, to like go figure out what they actually think about like the universe and the reality. And then, a lot of people still come back to mostly what they originally believed. But don't you think it's weird when you meet someone who's like, yeah, I've never questioned it. I don't even think about it. I don't even think
Right.
about
Yeah.
that late at
Yeah.
night when I'm like wondering
Yeah.
what's out there beyond the universe. Like,
Yeah.
those
That's
are
not
weird ones.
true. I don't think that those people exist.
I've met people
Yeah.
that I don't truly think that they don't think about that stuff, and those people to me are like the weirdest people I know.
I think there are people that are more like, just their personalities are more prone to be like, this is working for me. I have no reason to
Content.
That's true.
Yeah.
get
That's what I was
really.
gonna say when you were saying like you're seeing things. There's a personality type that is like, I don't really need to think about that because I'm never gonna
Right.
find answers. So
Well, people think
and
like
then
you're
there's people that are like, I
gullible.
need to know.
People
Yeah.
think you're gullible if you join a cult, or you're easily manipulated or something, or you're dumb. People think that, you could, I think a lot of cult members coming out are afraid that, we look dumb. And so it kind of like stunts us from healing, because we're embarrassed. And I
Yeah.
just want to say, don't be embarrassed. It can happen to anybody at any time of your life. And it's more common than you think.
Yeah.
Was there anything surprising, Jordan, when members reached out? Was there any like story that really surprised you about the WMSCOG, or like, I don't know, shocked you
Mhm.
or really stuck with you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first heard it, the WMSCOG discourages or sometimes flat out tells its members not to preach to like the handicapped or the homeless or the elderly or homosexuals. That was like a shocking thing, especially when I have members. So coming from a perspective where, again, like I kind of mentioned earlier, when I read like at least like especially the New Testament, I see like, if you took one thing away from the New Testament, what it's about love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. And if you do these two things, you're fulfilling the whole law and the prophets. So when I get these members coming in the comments all the time saying, you're just this unbiblical breaker of God's law because you're not keeping Sabbath, and you're on your way to hell, and you're deceived by Satan because you don't keep the Passover, and they're focused on all these outward things, and then I find out like that they are like just blatantly saying, hey guys, like, let's just ignore these entire groups of people because they don't really have anything to offer us. Like, they're not going to benefit us. They can't really offer money or services. They're not going to look good. They don't give really a good curb appeal to our group. So let's just not, for whatever reasons, they don't preach to these people. And that is just shocking. And that to me is just like, it's disgusting. It really is disgusting. I know that the members doing that, I think, are in a large part victims to those who have taught them that way. But I think that's one of those things when I've compared that to, I think, what I see in Jesus in the Bible, it's
literally
there is
the opposite.
Such a stark contrast where I have to say they are not getting that from the
Bible tells you to do.
Yeah, right. So that has continued to just be very shocking and frustrating. I think maybe another specific thing would be I talked to interviewed a father of a member whose child got sucked into the group, and some of the stories he told about like sitting down with the pastor with that child and basically was being like blackmailed in a lot of ways, and like that child was being held at spiritual ransom in a lot of ways, was basically how his story sounded. And so I guess the heartlessness, the lack of like humility, the lack of compassion, the lack of kindness, the lack of like just being real, sincere people who are in touch with like sympathy toward other people. Like that's something that I've just seen over and over again, and that coupled with like a lack of critical thinking and just like basically switching
brain.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting to see Edgar before when he was in the church, and then to speak to Edgar now when he's out of the church? Isn't he such a different person?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I literally texted him last night after the video premiered, or this morning, I can't remember, but I just said, this is just surreal still. It's just like when we met him, I mean, again, he's basically the reason in large part that we started. It was that conversation with him that kind of instigated me doing this. And he was all in. He was very passionate and very well versed in the doctrine. Very well able to articulate the doctrines, and he made some points that made me scratch my head, and so now to have him where he's at, like attacking in a way, attacking this group is just it's crazy. And he just seems more at peace. I think he's
happy.
Really
right.
He's, even though there's a lot of hard things going on in his life. So
he did seem like a burden was taken off. It's just so fascinating to see, the cult identity and then the real identity.
Yes. So I think you put that so well, and that's stuck with me listening through your podcast talking about that, because that is so true. There is two different people operating within one person.
It feels very weird because I feel like a totally different person, a different everything, different style, different speech, different outfit, different, every single thing was so different.
It was different. When my phone would ring, Tony's been my best friend since I was a kid. And when my phone would ring, there were years where I'd be like, oh God, somebody like check the news and see what North Korea did this time. My sister's calling. Like we never lost touch all the way, but like I definitely felt like anytime she called, it was to like preach to me about something that was happening in the world, and I was
100%.
Yeah. So, I can't imagine how frustrating that probably was for you. I can't imagine.
It was frustrating. I'm surprised that they let me do as many studies at her church as they did. I can't believe they let me. I mean, I never went to services, but I would do.
They thought they were going to get you too. That's why.
They totally did.
They were trying to get me.
Oh yeah.
I never once was I tempted to like do it, and I was kind of like I would like poke at them. I just like I think about what they let me do there, and like
she would embarrass me so much. I'd be like, Lindsay, you can't come anymore. You're embarrassing me.
Because I like to have the real conversations about like what do you believe?
Well, yeah, they don't want that. They don't want to have those conversations. They need to stick to their script.
Yeah. If they get pushed away from their script, they get frustrated.
It's
like why are you asking me that? Like, I don't know. I don't have a prepared answer.
And I'm sure, Jordan, they really wanted to get you because you would have been like oh man, you would have been a great gospel worker for them. So I'm sure at one moment they really wanted to get you, but then they realized, you were the enemy.
Oh shoot.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
speaking of that, have you received any backlash from them? Any you've been very public, about, and you haven't been like rude. Like I said, you have always been respectful. You have always invited people on, as we have, to invite members to come on to have a conversation. You've always been open and nice, but have you received any backlash? Anything?
Can you tell us
from
about the hacking experience? Because we did watch that video, and then I had a nightmare that night about it.
Did you? Yeah. So I mean that's probably the most like extreme example of things that have happened, and I think members and I would say in my opinion, there's probably some leadership involved. I know they have a media team, and so I'm sure they have meetings and say, okay, what can we do to like shut this guy up and stuff like that. And so I think there was a point where like me and another person who also has who's spoken out about them, like our accounts were being attempted to be hacked into like in the same night, and like we checked and it was like I got like 5 or 6 notifications,
like Zoom or Facebook.
It was
or
Instagram I think was the main one, and so that's happened.
Why do you think they would want to do that?
I think maybe one of the main reasons they wanted to was to like find out what current members were contacting me, so they could put a stop to it and go then talk to those members, probably, which is just creepy beyond.
It is
all
so creepy.
reason.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been careful and strive to just like publicly try to just show them any that might be watching that I'm just a real person, and like no matter if it's Juchol Kim or Zongil Jha, I would love to just sit down and talk with you face to face as a human being. Hey, look, I'm like, I just think like this is ridiculous. You're not God and you know it. Stop destroying these people's lives.
I've spoken to them and I bowed down to them.
Did you? That's yeah.
Well, let me post the picture of her with her. I was like, let's put the picture. Wow. She was like, no, absolutely not. I'm like, come on. It's a picture of you.
They won't like that.
No. Yeah, but they probably don't like our podcast very much, and whatever.
No. And I've noticed, I think you guys have maybe gotten progressively antagonistic, which I've appreciated. I think you started out, I noticed, in the first couple episodes, it was like, oh, they're being too nice. They're being too nice to him. Like, don't.
Honestly, that's my process, I've heard it though.
Yeah,
that is my real end time process. In the beginning, I'm like hesitant. Oh my God, what happened to me? Oh my God, I'm really scared. What are they going to do? And now I'm more in like a more advanced part of my healing. And I'm sure that you've seen that with the members that you interview. You see people probably that recently come out and are struggling with certain things, and then people that are out for years and they're struggling with different things. And I think it is a lifelong journey of deprogramming and kind of fixing the patterns that happened in our mind. But it is interesting to see the different processes.
Yeah, and I like when I say you're being too nice, I think it's great how you handled it and how you've talked about them. I'm more just like when I've heard your story, I was like, man, these like the group abused you spiritually and emotionally, and you have every right to like call it out as it is, and I'm just glad that it seems like you feel more like you don't have to like maybe defend them and just say, hey, this is like. They're not good. This is
weird.
bad.
It's weird how my default is still to defend them.
Yeah.
Even when they're the enemy. I know.
You don't need to. You can like not to say we shouldn't be kind and compassionate to the members,
right?
But the organization itself, it is not good. It is not good.
Yeah, it is not good. Thank you so much for like speaking out and doing all of your work. And Lindsay, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I got some questions for you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh God.
Can we post the video of? Is it too personal to post the video of you remodeling your house?
Oh no!
Oh my God, I love those videos. You're so handy.
I wanted to point out the part, and this is my favorite thing you said. You're like, the ceiling caved in. And I don't really know what I was doing, and I replaced the beam. I hope I did it right. I was like, yes! Yes,
Right.
that's
Yes.
my kind of remodeling. Like, I love that you're just like, I don't know what the name of that is. I fixed it. I don't know what it is.
Yep.
Like, I love that it's not one of those like talking over my head
Yeah.
videos
I
because my
definitely, I do
husband's a
not know what
little
I'm doing.
boomer.
Yeah.
Jordan, tell us what it is. So you remodeling, it's an old store. Is that what it is?
So it's me and my wife live in like an old. Originally, it was like a general store
Okay.
back early 1900s, and then it was as I grew up in this town, it was used like as a cafe, and so it's a really big old brick building that we live in and just have been slowly renovating.
That's cool.
House. And so yeah, I started a TikTok account. Um, and then it kind of exploded out of nowhere. I mean, exploded, and
Yeah.
to me it did. It got like 100,000 followers in a
Nice.
couple. So
That's awesome.
Well,
so
that's a really
Well,
fun life experience.
it
What
is.
a cool therapeutic thing to do. I think that sounds so fun.
After I watched it, I was like, oh my God, this was a year ago.
yeah,
The video was taken. So have there been a lot of updates, or is it everything take like? Do you start something and it takes like way longer than you expected?
yes,
Yeah.
pretty
Mhm.
much. Yeah,
Yeah. You had
it's
so many ideas that I was like, oh my gosh. After a year, I was curious to see.
yeah.
Like, did you ever build that upstairs across from the other upstairs one? You know what I'm talking about? Like the
Oh yeah.
really
I
cool,
I
huge,
think
big room.
I might have changed the layout. And so we do have like the basic framing in of that second floor area, but it's quite a bit different now, and it's all just framing at this point. I'm
That's
just
cool.
we're way in over our heads financially, and we're paying for it out of pocket, and so it's like I do little things like
Like
little chunks
physically,
of
I
work
don't know
and
how you would
stop.
do it. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a massive project, but it's very cool. I love how you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just like reposted this.
I know. I wish I was that brave. I have so many projects and I don't know how to do that. Lindsay's husband is so handy. I call him our wood whittler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
He
just
makes,
makes all these amazing wood things.
yeah, you're like, you know, it would look cool here. And then within like a week, it's done. But he's so smart that he'll try to explain to me what, like, he talks to me in the verbiage of like somebody who has any idea what any of that means. So when I watched your video, I was like, this is more my style. Just like, I don't know
Yeah.
what this thing's called. I don't know what
I'm
this
glad
is.
you've appreciated that, because sometimes I'm like, people probably think I'm an absolute idiot and are
No, I love
concerned
it.
for my
No.
safety, but I'm
Like,
like, I don't know what
you
I'm
very
doing, and that's
clearly know what
fine.
you're doing. And so I
To an
appreciate
extent,
that.
yeah.
Oh, I want to ask you. I want to ask you about this is a good way to end it, I think, unless you guys have anything else to say. I want to talk about you personally, like how you've just helped people. He takes a big sigh. He's like, oh
We
God.
forgot to do that from the beginning. We got so like caught up in our.
No, I want to just talk about like how much you've helped people, and if you have ever like personally considered, following the path of helping people deconstruct or helping people come out of cults, maybe even come out of cults into regular Christianity or like mentor them or anything like that. Have you considered following that path?
Yeah, I think that's I'm kind of actually just recently feeling re-motivated to put like a lot of energy and time into this. And so one thing I've tried to do with the channel is, and I'm constantly inviting current members to do, is like to have actual phone conversations with me. A lot of members are coming in the comments and like wanting to debate, and I'm trying to actually build real relationships with people and have real conversations. And I've done that in the past with several current members where we've called, and I've had like literally like 6 to 7 hour phone conversations with members where it went from the beginning, like us debating back and forth, to the end we're like just friends and we're just sharing really just things in our lives. And I think
That's cool.
that's something I enjoy doing, like not just making the videos, but
Right.
people who need that help following
Real
up with
connect.
them.
That's what I mean. That's amazing. You have a real talent for that and a real patience for that, which a lot of people do not have with cult members. They do not understand. They don't have that time or that patience to really build those connections and those relationships. So I think that's something you're really good at.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think to me, like at this point, like my wife had the conversation recently where all this takes a lot of time, and so she's said like you can't spend that much time on it if it's not providing for our family.
For
and you have to
sure.
do a hobby. And so I've kind of coming more to terms with that and realizing like I really want to keep doing this, and there's so many things I feel like not only I want to do but really need to be done in this area. Like I really feel like probably one of the most beneficial long-term things relating to the WMSCOG that needs to be done is like more like really well made like websites that have like detailed support. Even just going through Bible verses that go like show why their use of the Bible verses are not correct, and have all sorts of information for members. I think that's something that I think would be hugely helpful, and I really want to do that, and a lot more videos and interviews. I think at this point I'm really, as much as I hate to do it, I'm on videos, I'm kind of telling people that I need financial support, and so I have like a Patreon account for Great Light Studios that people have slowly. Some people have joined because I really want to do this. I know it needs a lot of time and attention, and
it's important work. I encourage people to donate and check out his Patreon, because it is important work and it is time consuming. And I completely agree. When we started this podcast, we thought it'd just be something we do on the side, just an hour a week or something. It ended up being it's so much bigger than that, and we're the same. We have families and we have children and we have school and all jobs and all this stuff happening in our lives, but we really want to like give so much effort to this because this is important work. So, everybody support the work of helping people come out of these mind control groups.
We'll definitely like post the link to your Patreon and stuff on the show notes. So if anyone wants to jump on after this and make sure the Great Light Studios keeps going. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think any group, whether it's your podcast or I know there's another, I think it's called the Simple Christian Podcast, where he interviews former members. Any sort of content right now that's being put out related to this specific group, I think is hugely important and needs to be supported, because I think there's just very little at this point out there. And also the WMSCOG is the kind of group who attempts to flood the internet and oversaturate it with their content, literally creating multiple websites upon websites, so that if you search anything related to Mother God or WMSCOG, it's going to be their stuff that comes up. And so I think there needs to be efforts made to like push back against that, because we want members to go to the internet, and people who might be considering joining this to, if they go online, we want anti-WMSCOG content coming up that gives them real information. Both sides. And
I think learning that about the church was it has been one of the most shocking things for me, is learning how like structured their like taking over the internet is. Like that is so crazy to me that they're able to do that.
Even when they popped into your video and they that was so creepy with that naked guy. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Creepy. And how do they think that's from God? Like, who are these people?
Right. If they're trying to help us, like win the argument, they did
totally. They look so stupid. I don't know why they would do that. But it is definitely a targeted effort to
targeted effort is what I was trying to think of.
Yeah, it's like they're purposely manipulating the internet so that so
and it's frustrating, and again, like in my opinion, when it seems the evidence would seem to indicate, at least that in large part it has to do with money. I in my opinion, I don't say I'm making any like clear factual statements, but that's just what I feel like is happening from my perspective, that they are willing, at least at the top, the leadership is willing to manipulate people, deceive people, and keep people trapped in this like burdensome religious structure, because they're putting checks in the offering plate every week, and that's just despicable. And it's
cults, all these organizations.
Continues to make me mad enough to keep keep
fighting. It always comes down to money. I mean, that's what it is. It's either about money or sex or power. I mean, that's what we're researching, is figuring out. But
I think that was a case for like
hard part too. Sorry, Jordan, I keep talking over you.
No, go ahead.
You were saying how to judge like good or evil. And I have a really hard time philosophically thinking that people are evil. Like that's like a really hard thing that I grapple with spiritually.
There is even evil at all.
And I don't really believe that people are good or bad. I think we're obviously a combination of both of those things, depending on where we're at in our lives and our environment and everything. And so I have a hard time compartmentalizing that, like, a leader of this church would be such a mean person that they would manipulate millions of people all over the world. And so I find myself trying to find meaning within this organization to find out, but like, why? I know it's money, but like, why are they, how and why? And like, do they really believe that they are like the leaders and like really mother and father? Or do they know that they're just tricking all these people and like manipulating them? And that's where I feel like I'm involved emotionally, because I'm just like, I need to know the answer, and I will never know. It's like one of those things, like, I'm sure we'll never find out, like, if they knew, unless they go to jail or something, which they probably won't, right? They live in South Korea. It's not. Anyways. So.
Yeah, I get that, because it's like you think about, and I can't make any like dogmatic statements and say, even like Zongil Ja, God the Mother, that she. I mean, maybe she's so deceived herself that she really thinks she's God. I don't know. Maybe she absolutely knows. My gut would tell me she knows she's not God. and there's an element of power and money and prestige that she gets that she doesn't want to let go of. That would be my suspicion. I can't say that for sure.
I feel like there's also like mental illness and mind control.
Yeah, what if she's just like a schizophrenic who's like, I am God, but she's so composed. Like everything I've ever seen of her composure is so I don't
elegant.
Know. Yeah.
Jordan works in video, right? I mean, you're really good in all your videos, so you know what it's like to set things up and set up camera angles and make things look a certain way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Propaganda. We're going to do a whole episode about propaganda. That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
The control of information.
That would be cool. That would be good.
All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about?
I want to keep talking.
We can do another. I mean, if Jordan another time, we can do another interview.
Yeah. Let's let him.
Yeah, I'd be up for coming back whenever. This has been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy listening. It's fun to have another podcast that I can listen to that's covered in this group. I don't like re-listen to my own stuff. I might listen to little clips, but to have somebody else that kind of keeps me in the loop with stuff and gives me ideas about what I could talk about, it's really fun. So really appreciate the podcast and like your intro song.
Thank you.
I told you guys that. That was so funny when I heard that. I think the first time I was like in the middle of working, so I didn't even really know what was going on. And then I listened to the next episode and I realized, you're asking the WMSCOG not to sue you in song. And that's hilarious, because I've literally wanted to do that. Like, how do I just ask them not to sue me up front?
I know.
Just please don't. It's like such a brilliant
like we
way
need a disclaimer, but a different kind of creative way, because I really don't want to get sued. That's a real statement.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't either. And instead of suing us, why not like talk to us and maybe work us out as human beings?
Right. I would love to have a conversation, but
hopefully soon. Like in it.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah. This is our invite on either platform that you want. Anybody in the chat still.
Yep.
I would like
There's
to
a long-standing invite on Great Light Studios that any deacon or pastor can come on and.
Which Edgar came on and he debated with you guys, which was so funny. And now look at him. That's what I mean. You have one success story of bringing him out. So I think that's really cool.
Yep.
That's really something to be proud of. That you helped somebody, and you were because that took a lot of time and a lot of patience. So just to help him out.
It's awesome. We get a lot of emails. I actually want to do a video where I'm trying to start gathering like comments on Instagram or messages or emails that we get where people say, we watched your videos and then we left the group.
Oh, that's amazing.
But I don't ever really share them. So I just kind of assume people realize that's happening. And
you should. I think people should see like what's happening in the background and how many people are realizing, and how much this is people. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's why they put so much effort into them not talking, because that's so helpful for them to realize, like, oh, this isn't normal. And like, I thought I was going through this struggle alone and that it was like my problem, but we're all going through it. And it's like the doubts that I'm having are going on in all of our heads.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's very cool for you to make those videos. And then come on here. Thank you so much. That was fun.
Yeah. Yes, this was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, we'll talk to you next. We'll talk to you soon.
And good luck with your videos and everything that you do, and we'll post it all in the notes. Everybody follow Jordan, okay? He's doing great work.
Yes, thank you very much.
Click on his Patreon link here.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Jordan, do you want to say boom?
Baby?
Boom, baby.
Yeah. Perfect.
Bye, guys.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.